There's something so healing about singing and chanting with other people. I until I started, I was in a choir, but it wasn't the same as
Mm,
chanting. Actually, chanting with other people. You know
mm,
the long chants where we do ba ba hum hu, and
mm,
everybody's doing their own, and it just somehow syncs together. It's just amazing the sound that the group create.
mm,
You know, and listening to to everybody's different voice all at the same time. It
mm.
just feels so like we're all individually singing at our own pitch, and yet together we just sound so great. You know, it just sounds it's just
Mhm.
wonderful. It's
Yeah,
so uniting or something.
it is like musically, harmonically, it sounds, you can't create sound like that. It's like the human voice. To me, I'm trained as a musician and as a music producer. I was a guitar player when I was younger, but I always nevertheless thought that human voice, is the best of all instruments. I don't know why I never took singing lessons, but I remember already back then thinking so. But there is well, it's the human body, different cavities in the head area, in the throat, what makes human voice unique in its sound. You can't really duplicate it with synthesizers or anything. But when you have a group of people chanting mantras in a room, there's something really, really special and powerful in that. Yeah. Something that I was thinking just earlier today related to this is that, we haven't done much chanting on this retreat, but we chanted uh, Longchenpa's mantra a little bit. And I just had one of those moments when you realize how precious it is to have practices, chanting practices or any practices, because these are actual direct expressions of Buddha nature. They are not only means to get to Buddha nature, they are the actual expression of Buddha nature. If they weren't, they wouldn't work in getting the recognition. And this is kind of an interesting point I was talking about earlier, was yesterday, about practices that don't work, and people sitting stuck in the samsaric mind, not recognizing Buddha nature. So there you have it, like some practices work and some practices don't. I remember, when was it? Over 10 years ago, I had learned Zen Buddhism, I had learned Taoism, Shintoism, I had done some Christian practice, I had done a lot of like Kriya, Kundalini Yoga, like Shaiva Tantra, Tantric practice. So I had all of these things, in my in my repertoire. And of course, there was also a large, big punch of techniques that I had learned directly from non-physical Mahasiddhas. And then, I was enjoying Babaji's Guru Yoga, his strong blessings, just beautiful blessings. I remember back those days. I would spend a lot of time on the meditation cushion just enjoying the company of Babaji or Tirumular or other great Hindu masters. So I asked Babaji that, what am I supposed to do with all this? You know, I kind of started to see the principles behind all those techniques and practices. I started to, get beyond the forms of practices. But I hadn't really completely figured it out yet, not clearly enough. So Babaji told me that, look, there is no this or that yoga. There is only yoga that is according to the tradition and that works, and the rest is outside of that. That then there's stuff that doesn't work. So, stuff that works, even if it's something really simple like chanting Longchenpa's name, it changes everything. Changes everything. You might be headed to have, I don't know, 500, 5,000 lives in samsara, but because you have some small karmic connection to spirituality, to dharma, and if it happens to be with, you know, Mahasiddhas, Buddhas, the whole direction changes. And one's whole life takes a very different gear, just through that simple name of the Guru and knowing how to use it. Isn't that incredible? I was earlier today speaking about pure mind and then impure mind. And even though it's Buddha nature and samsaric mind, and even though it's easy to understand what both mean, we get stuck and confused. Even as practitioners, it's kind of like a Finnish skiers, cross-country skiers. They go to swamp and they have these skiing sticks in their hands and they run in the swamp like waist deep. And it's really heavy, right, to do that. Like run through the swamp waist deep. So that's a perfect analogy for this sorting out the samsaric mind. You're kind of sinking in the swamp, but you're still, pushing on with your motivation and with your energy, with your efforts, including relaxation. So it's easy to understand the difference. But if we do practices that don't work, this doesn't exist. You just have this swamp. So you go to the middle of the swamp, you cross your legs in a perfect lotus posture, put your hands like you've been told, align your spine, and sink to the bottom of the swamp. And there you are sitting like a Buddha. Oof. Sometimes you're lucky and there is just out of grace of the Buddha within, there is a thunderbolt that hits you, when you're there inside under the swamp, thunderbolt hits you and you get out of it momentarily. And you have a kensho. You have a recognition of the basic state. And you might have two, you might have three over the span of decades. But nevertheless, your main practice is sitting stuck under a swamp. So I think the Babaji's point that there is no this or that yoga. There is only that which is according to the tradition and what works, and then there's the rest. How do we know which works? We have to test. We cannot be told. We cannot rely on any type of external verification method. We have to try ourselves. But something that is absolutely important to understand, that we need to recognize the Buddha within, Buddha nature. Shamatha practice, calming down the mind through concentration practices, is a completely different thing. You won't have awakening experiences, you won't meet yourself as a Buddha by practicing shamatha. And this is a really stubborn, really stubborn point in meditation teachings, that people waste, I use the word waste, time, years, wasting their energy, their best practice years, following their breath. Little benefit, but not much. So that's very unfortunate. We should have, well, it would be ideal, of course. It is only logical to say that it would be ideal to have practices that are within the great tradition of yoga and that enable anybody to recognize their Buddha nature. We are not, as seekers, we are not seeking to have momentary calmness. We seek to know ourselves, because that's what we don't know as samsaric beings. So it is really as simple as that. And we can recognize the Buddha within through very simple practices. It doesn't have to be like a I'm opening a scroll here, figuratively speaking. Doesn't have to be a scroll of long mantras and long complex practices, and then commentaries, hundreds and hundreds of pages of commentaries to understanding the practices. Doesn't have to be anything close to that. Can be just the name of Longchenpa. And what that can do, it takes few sincere calls to Longchenpa's telephone. And when he picks it up, pow, you're out of the swamp. And you're not going back as long as you keep dialing his number. Or Guru Rinpoche's number. Any Mahasiddha's number. It's really that simple. Then what happens is that if you were stuck with the samsaric mind before, suddenly there is the Buddha within appears, and this starts crumbling away. Then you have only this left. Eventually. That's the beauty of proper, real, valid Dharma teachings and Dharma practice. I realize that we have 20 minutes to go, and I promised to teach Tonglen. Päivi is going to chew me a new butthole. Well, there will be a recording. Hope that is enough of an apology. All right, Ugi, can you lead us through vows and prayers, please?